Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today is the 8th day of our session on full stack software development using Python. Our last 7 sessions, at least 6 sessions, the first session wasn't recorded. At least 6 sessions are recorded, and those are available on YouTube. I'll be sharing the link in a moment. To create a simple user sign-up system, we've been building a Twitter application, a Twitter clone application. We call it Repl.it. That Twitter clone application allows us to log in today using just the username. We don't take the password. So we'll be encrypting the user's password today. We also learn how we can, not decrypt it because we cannot decrypt it, how we can match the user password to say if the user is the same user who signed up. And then we also store the information into the DB. All right, so let's move forward. By the way, this level of this today's session is beginner. It's a beginner's course. So if you're an advanced user, it may not be super useful for you. But for beginners, I hope it will be pretty useful. So moving forward, in the previous videos, I'll be sharing the link with everyone. You can find the previous videos from here. Moving next, what we know already. We know about MVC. We also refactored our code to follow MVC. MVC, if folks who are not familiar with MVC or want to learn more, please watch our video. I think it's day 6 where we covered MVC. We also refactored our code. The code was all in one file. We refactored our code, created multiple files to follow the MVC, try to follow the MVC standard. Then we also know how to do basic inserts into the DB. At this point, we are using SQLite, which is a file-based database. We learned in the last class how to create a SQLite database and how to insert data into it. So that was working. That's on day 7. Then retrieve data from DB. We also learned how to do that. Basic inserts and select statement. And this information that we learned in the last classes is going to be useful today as well. So I'm just recapping this. So, just to give you an idea that was coming. So it's stored data in the DB, store user data in the DB. So what's so special about it? The only special information here is actually the password. Okay, it's super private. It needs to be handled very, very securely. Now, we should never store password in plain text, right? It's because just to give you an example, a company where there are 10 software developers, if we store the data in the database in plain text, any developer can log into the database, or any person can log into the database with the access and then actually can see the password. So we should never store password in the plain text. We must hash it using one-way encryption. And one-way encryption, by one-way encryption, we mean that, something like SHA-256, which is a very famous one. There is SHA-512 as well now. There are many other algorithms that we have that we can use to kind of encrypt the password. Okay, we'll be using SHA-256 today, which is still very highly used and promoted. I know that SHA-512 is also is more secure. We'll talk about a few more algorithms in the next slide. So we'll learn how to generate SHA-256 hash. What is SHA-256? It generates almost unique fixed size 256-bit hash. It's a one-way encryption function, so no one can decrypt it. Okay, so if the password is encrypted, and even if we give it to someone else, they can barely do anything about it. Okay, they cannot reverse engineer and get the password. Other encryption algorithm that we might want to talk about here is the MD5. Honestly, MD5 was very highly used, widely used, yes, in the last 10 years at least. I've used MD5 a lot, but it's no longer considered secure. So it's recommended that whoever is using MD5 should change it to now at least SHA-256. There are other algorithms like SHA-1, SHA-2, and SHA-256, the one that we're using. So, these are just for you to know that these algorithms exist. There may be new algorithms coming. There are other algorithms as well that are stronger but takes longer time. So, best of both worlds at this point, if you ask me, is SHA-256. So here is, just the one-liner function that helps us to encrypt any password that we want. For example, this generate password hash. Okay. Now, where are we getting this generate password hash function. It's actually a library. It's coming from a library called Repl.it. Like this is a German word. I may be saying it wrong, but the translation of it is tools. Okay, so it's basically in English what you're saying, that from tools.security import generate password hash and check password hash. After we imported generate password hash is the function that we need to call. The first parameter, as you can see, is the password itself, the password that you want to hash. The second parameter is the algorithm that you use. Now we are specifying that we want to use SHA-256. We can change it to 512 or SHA-1 or MD5, whatever we want. That's totally up to us what we're going to use, but SHA-56, like I said, is the standard at this point. The moment we run this function, you can see the hash, there's a random hash showing up as a result. And one more thing is that every time you run it, the hash will be different, okay? Which means that for a single password, for the same password, every time you run it, the hash, the output will be very different. So only the algorithm and the algorithm is designed in a way that it will not generate the same hash for the same password. Why is this important? It's so that people cannot guess it, that what the password is, right? Every time it's randomized, so it's almost impossible for someone to kind of reverse engineer this. This is for the security reason, and that's the reason why we should be using one-way hashing algorithms. So now that we have one-way password hashing algorithm implemented, how do we check if the password is the same as the hashed one? And for that, I mean, we can never do that because we cannot decrypt that. For example, if the password is full and it gets converted into something like super complicated hash, and every time I encrypt it, the password and the hash changes every time. Now, how do I actually check if full is the password? If the user is trying to log in, how do I know that this is the same password the user entered? And for that, we need to again go back to the from tool.security import check password hash. So we need to use that function to kind of compare the password and the hash. So the first parameter that it takes is the hash itself, and the second parameter is the password. So how about we give it a shot, try it out on our local first. Let's come to a Python console. Please let me know if you can see my screen. So I'm in the Python terminal now, and I'm using Python 3.7. So I'll just copy paste the code from here. And what I'm saying is that from tools.security import generate password hash and check password hash. The moment I enter, no error, which means that it got imported without a problem. Then let's go ahead and generate password hash. And if I run that function, the first parameter, as you know, the first parameter is the password that we want to hash, and the keyword parameter is method, the method that we want to use here. So we'll be using maybe password will be secret, and then the second parameter will be method, and method is going to be SHA-256. So if you run that, there you go. The hash has been generated. This hash is unique, mostly unique, they say. Maybe there is some edge cases where it may not be unique, but which is the current standard, so it should be pretty safe. If you run that same command again, then you can see that the password hash has changed. So you see at the end is 6B0. The new one that got generated is 19A, right? So as many times as I run it, you can see that the output hash is changing all the time. Okay, so this is how we hash it in a nutshell. But with that, let's try how we can compare the password. Okay, so in order to compare the password, all we have to do is run this function, which is a function that we already imported, check password hash. The first parameter would be the password itself. The first parameter is the hash. I'll copy paste the hash, and the second parameter will be the password that I want to compare, secret. So I would expect it to return true because I just encrypted that, and there you go, it says true. But what if a user doesn't know the password and is trying a different password? For example, full, you'll say the password is false. The result is false, it didn't match. Next slide, whereas let's add the registration feature. So this is our time to start modifying our code. We'll be doing a few things here. The register route for sign up, we don't have a sign up route at this point. So we'll create a sign up route. We'll create a template for user registration, HTML template, so that user can provide his username and password, store, and then we will encrypt it, and then store the information in the database. Okay, so for that, I will need, so this is, I'll be sharing the link with you in the chat. Please click on that link and that should allow you to log in. And then we can code together and implement the functionality. Few volunteers, please. I don't want to code. We can code together. We can do pair programming. And 2 users joined. So let's get started then. So what we need to do here is that the first thing first, we need to register a route, right? So we don't have, so why don't we show, since so many members are new already, so why don't we just run this application and see and show how this application behaves? Okay, so I'll be opening that in a new tab. Okay, there you go. So you can see that it directly takes out to the login page, and I can log in with any username at this point. I can just log in with my name, Son, and then it's asking what is happening. So it's basically asking for a tweet. So what's happening? So yeah, so I'll just say good morning, okay, and then maybe I'll go back and add another tweet. So good morning, learning password hashing. Okay, tweets. It will show me all the tweets that are available. So these are the first tweets that I added. Good morning. And okay, learning password hashing. These are the last two. The last two are added by me. These are added in the last classes. And as you can see, this is getting stored in the SQL database, SQLite database. I can /Hassan, and that will show me the tweets only from Hassan, only from myself, Raptor, and will show the tweets from only the Raptor user. So that's what we have been implemented so far. Okay, as you can see, the UI is ugly. We're going to fix the UI in the future classes, but it does allow us to log in and log out with very basic functionality. But we don't have a user registration system today because we didn't know how to hash the password. Now that we know, let's go ahead and implement user registration. Okay, so for that, what we have here is that a route for, going to the home page, which basically shows the login page, and there's a login handler that checks, that logs in the user. There's a logout handler. Okay, there's a tweet page. There is a save tweet handler, and then there are handlers for showing all the tweets and filter the tweets by username. So these are the routes that we have already. So we need to add a new route today to show the registration form. So can someone add the route? So all we have to do is basically we can just copy paste the existing code and just create a form. So that, yeah, we can copy paste this. I think that makes sense. /register, yeah, /register is good, but the method is not going to be post because here is going to show all show the form only. Yeah, get is the right method, correct? And then the function name is register. That's fine.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
You said that the register, the route, the method is get. Can you explain why is get instead of post?
Yeah, sure. So it's gonna be get to begin with, because when you want to register, when you want to sign up, right? The first thing you do is to see the form. You go to a page where you see the form, right? You're not really submitting it. You just need the form. So that's the get request. That's the getting the form. And then after you fill it up, you submit it. This and the submission is when you submit it, this is the point where you need to post it. So we need to do the two-step. There is two-step process.
Okay.
So first the get, and then it's a post. Yeah, no problem. All right. So we have the /register. We expect that there will be a username in the form. We'd expect that there will be a password in the form, right? Yeah, that makes sense. And we don't need the global user variable here. I'll just get rid of that because we copy pasted, it came from there. We also don't want to redirect the user yet. Okay, so great. So we have the route registered, and we can see that we can here actually getting the username and password is not really valid, right? Because request.form is only there when there is a post submission, when someone is submitting something, right? This in this case, we just want to render the template, right? We just want to render the template. We are not getting the username and password yet. So I would just probably copy, this render template line number 72, this render template thing, and just paste it in here because we just want to render a template where we have a form.
Can we somehow reuse a form HTML under the template?
Yeah, so we could use the form.html, but you know what? It's going to be more complicated now because if you see the form.html, it has one field only, which was okay for our, existing purposes, but now we need two fields. So I'd probably just go ahead and create a registration form. Okay. So what we could do is that, the form.html, we could just, here's a 3-dot button, 3-dot, we can just say that duplicate this. And then we can modify that and call it, and we can name it register.html. Okay, so all we have to do is that go to form.html and say duplicate. And then we can have a new file called register.html. There you go. Now in the register.html, yes, the form method is going to be post once the user submit, but the action will be the URL where the sign up will actually take place, right? So let's change the action here, and we can hardcode the URL to something like you name it, like register complete or register user or sign up. What I'm saying is that here we have the action. We can just say that when user submits the form, we can go to /register-post. That can be the post handler. Okay, and then the header. We can change the header to. We can change the header to. We can register sign up, maybe sign up for Raptor Twitter app. Okay, that's going to be the header. And there are going to be two fields, right? The first field will be the username, and the second field will be the password, right? So here we can see the label will be user name, and I want to name it as username. Can someone create the password field? Great. I'll just go ahead and add a BR at the end to give a break. So, first comes the password and first the username, and then we'll have the password. Great. So we have the username, text, username, and password, text, password. Great. And then we have a submit button. The submit button, the value of the submit button will be, that's a very valid. Someone changed the type to password. Thank you for that. That's the right thing to do. And input type submit, and the value will be sign up. We are not able to use the form.html here because it has only one field, like I said. So we are creating a new one. Great. So this form should be good enough for the sign up process. We have the username and password. Now that we have the register.html, we need to render this template, right? And we want to render it whenever the user visits /register. So in order to do that, we need to call the render template function. So we can copy the line number 72, the code there, and just paste it here, and then just, render the template. Anyone? Yeah, it's line number 72. Copy the whole thing. And we don't need line number 80 and 81. Yes, we'll need it in the next function where we handle the post, but for now we don't need it. Line number 80 and 81 we can get rid of. And return render template. And the template name is register. Right, so that's the new template. And at this point, we are not passing any variable because there is no variable. The user is not logged in. We don't have any information to render. So we can just get rid of all the parameters. Great. Excellent. So let's save that and let's run it and see what happens. Okay, I'll open a new tab. And if I go to /register now, and there you go, the username and password and sign up button is showing up. Excellent. The sign up is showing up on the same line. Maybe you want to put it in the next line. So what we do is that maybe just add a BR at this point. Okay. Stop, run, I'll restart the server. And if I refresh it, there you go, the sign up is coming on the next line. So it's asking for the username and password. Excellent. So now if we imagine I say the username is Asan and the password is who, and then if I sign up, it will go to the action URL. It will go to the action URL / register post and try to sign up the user. But the action user, that URL does not exist yet. But let's try to do that and see what happens. Don't save, no. And you can see the URL not found. So register / post is a new URL that we need to register so that we can, process the username and password and store the information. Okay. So let's register that route. We need a post handler. Great. And it's going to be post. Yes. And we need the function. You can call it register underscore post. Register underscore post. You can just name it as the same as the URL. Great. And here we need to handle the username and password, right? So here, since there is a form submitted, we'll get the handle of the form, right? And from the form, we can get the username and password. So we now need the code that we deleted, which is basically we can just copy from here, where we have the /login. There you go. You can just copy this line here and paste it in here. And we are looking for username here. So it's going to be username. And, in Python, it's always good to follow the Repl.it guideline. So there should be 2 spaces in between the functions. Great. So username request.form, username, we need access to the password as well. So let's copy paste this and get the password value as well. Line number 86. Yeah. And that'll be password and should be request.form password. Excellent. So I think that should give us access to the username and password. The next thing that we want to do is what? We want to store this information inside the database, right? Exactly. So maybe first thing first, maybe just render the username and password first to see that if we have the form submitted correctly. Okay. So what I would do is that just like take one step at a time. I'll just go ahead and print the username and comma password. Okay. Just to make sure that the post is working correctly. I'll stop it and restart it. And then we'll go to /register. Username is Asan, password is foo. Sign up. It says internal server error. There may be an error, but I would expect that to render. There you go, Asan and foo. You see that? So the password, username and password is getting posted correctly, and we are also able to store those information in the variables and render it, which means so far everything is working fine. There is an error that I believe that it didn't return a valid view. Yeah, it didn't return a valid response, but that's fine. Okay, because we're still fixing it. So now that we have the username and password, what are we going to do with the username and password? The question is, what are we going to do with the username and password? Anyone can answer?
We need to store them in the DB. Oh, sorry.
Exactly. Store in the DB. Now, storing in the DB, is it in the view, or is it in the controller, or is it in the model?
So it's in the I forgot the term. So it should be somewhere in the functionality should be in the db.py, but the main wrapper around should be in the twig.py, I think.
That's correct. But from the MVC perspective, yeah, that's correct, Samuel. That's the model, right? Storing the data is the responsibility of the model. So we'll need model functions. We don't have, at this point, we don't have the model functions to store this information inside the database. So we need to fix our model so that it's able to take this data and store it. Another step missing here is before we store in the model. Yeah, go ahead.
We need to hash it. Right?
Exactly. Before we store in the model, we need to hash it. So there is a, before model, there is a controller part of it. The controller can, hash it and store in the database. We could also put this in the model, I would say. I would probably put that in the model, the hashing part as well. Okay. So I will split the model into two. The first one is that strictly handles the DB. The second one that before the insertion, it just modifies the data. It hashes it and then inserts into DB. So maybe we, at this point, give it a pause and give it a pause here for the view part. And let's go to the db.py. Let's go to the db.py. And inside the db.py, you can see that our SQLite functionality that we built in the last class is there, right? So yeah, so we don't have the user table created yet. We only have the tweets table, line number 7. We're only creating the tweets table. We don't have the users table. So let's create the users table. And in order to do that, it's super easy because we have our structure is pretty good now. We can just copy paste the line. Say create table if not exist. This time it's going to be users. And then, yeah, it's always good to have an auto increment ID. We want the second field will be username. And the third field is going to be password. Excellent. So this statement, line number 8, will take care of creation of the table, the users table. I think we're good. Now, next thing is that now that we have the table, we need to be able to insert the user information into the DB. So we need to have a function called create user. Great. So create user, and create user will take 2 parameters. The first parameter will be the username, and the second parameter, yes, absolutely, it's the password. Okay, and then we want to insert into the users table, exactly, and the values will be null for the auto increment to work, then :t::u because you copy pasted it. I would recommend changing it to :u and :p because U stands for username and P stands for password. It's just a placeholder. We can name it anything, but it's better to be more, to name the variable correctly so it's less confusing. Yeah, great. So this will take care of the insertion of the user into the user DB. I would recommend adding a new line. Thank you. Adding two lines, great. And now we have the create user. Now creating user is good, but is that good enough? We need one more function, or at least 2 more functions, I guess. The next function will be, we want to be able to get the user by username, right? We want to be able to get the user by username. The reason behind it is that you cannot, we need to get the user by username first, and then only we can compare the password, right? Because the password is hashed. And we can never say that, for example, you cannot do this. Select star from users where username is this and password is this. It's not going to fly because the password hash is changing all the time. We have no idea what the password hash is. There's no way to kind of directly check the password. We need to get the password and call that function to compare the password, the check password function. So we need to get the user by username first. In order to get the username by username first, yes, select star from users where username is whatever username is passed. One question about line number 49, who can answer? Do we need fetch many?
No, assuming that user is unique, so assuming it's one record under.
Exactly. So that we expect there will be one user only, right? So that there is a function instead of fetch many, we should rather call fetch one. Fetch one, and fetch one takes no parameter. Yeah, so fetch one, yeah, and then we need to return that user. Excellent. So that will take care of the retrieving of the user. Okay. And all right. So I think that's all, I believe. Let's see if we need anything else, we'll come back.
How do you handle duplicate users' names, I guess?
What a great question. I was just waiting for this answer, this question to come. Now, if you go all the way up, you can see that this create user if not exist, and then we have username as text. This is our, maybe I want to ask this question. We cannot entertain multiple duplicate usernames in the DB, right? We cannot. Our model should be very solid to not allow it at the database level, if you ask me. Yeah, exactly, Samuel. We should use distinct. Yes, use distinct is good for when you're retrieving the data. Okay, use distinct is good for when you're retrieving the data. You want to eliminate duplicates. But there is another way where you can instruct the DB that, hey, this column that I'm creating, the username column, this is unique. So don't allow a duplicate entry in this table. So the database will not allow it at all. Okay, we could do it at the controller level. We could do it at the Python. Python could also enforce it, but that's not the best way to do that. The enforcement should be at the DB level and also at the model level. Yes, we could do that as well. We could say that the username is the primary key, but we already have a primary key. Can we have two primary keys in the table? Of course we can, but there is another way. Maybe not without, we don't have to complicate it too much, have multiple primary key, which is called composite key. We don't have to get there yet. There is another keyword we can use to make the username unique, which is basically unique. The keyword itself is unique. So let me, let's Google that just to make sure that I have the right syntax. Create table with unique key SQLite. Okay. I think it's just a unique, there you go. The column type, you do a create table, the table name, the column name, then we have the type. So in our case, a username, text, and then we just add unique at the end, and that will make the column unique. As simple as that. So why don't we go ahead and change our code to make the username unique?
Can user can primary key be unique? Sorry, primary key should be unique versus the other fields in the table could be unique as well, but they cannot be primary key. Primary key, because primary key should be in one in the table.
Yes, you're right. Primary key by definition is unique. Primary key by definition is unique, but it does not mean that there cannot be another field which is unique. Primary key's responsibility is to be unique. With one of the responsibilities, it's another responsibility of primary key is to be a key that we can search with, right? That we can find with, right? For example, your student ID or employee ID is primary key, right? But your student ID, for example, for a student, the student's ID and the student's username, both are unique. In this case, the ID is a primary key, if you ask me, and the username is unique. Okay, so all I'm saying is that just because something is unique doesn't mean it's required, it needs to be primary key. We need to ask the question, what is a valid primary key? A valid primary key in a general world is an auto-increment ID of the table. Okay, for example, a student ID could be a primary key. That's also a very valid example. Can username be primary key? Of course, username can also be primary key. But if I'm designing the table, I'll always have an auto-increment ID which is a number. And then if I need any other unique key in the table, I'll just go ahead and use the unique keyword there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does that mean that if we put the username text as a unique here, it doesn't make does it make sense that for line number 9, the username text also unique so that we are consistent?
Yeah. So someone used the second example. So this is one way. Username, you can say username text and then say unique. Okay. Or at the table level, we can also do this. You can just specify the fields and then you can say unique at the end. This also flies. So for example, see here, here's a very good example. Create table contacts. Contact ID is an integer primary key. First name, last name is our text, and email is a text, but it's not null and unique. Right. So this is a very good example. Like just, I mean, someone was saying that should email, like email should be unique. In that case, should this be a primary key? In that case, you see it's an example. No, it's not. They chose to make email as a unique field. But as far as our code is concerned here, where is it? Yeah. We are using the second syntax, which is this, which should also work without a problem. I use this one as well. And this one is also at the field level. This is the field level, and this is the table level. Both works. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I was going to ask line number 9, because we're putting the unique username at 12. Does it make sense that we put the same unique username for the line number 9?
Is that no, yeah, okay, I got it. Sorry, I got the question. I didn't understand the question. I'm so sorry.
Right.
So in the line number 9, what we are doing is that we are storing the data in tweets. We cannot have the username as unique there because one user can have multiple tweets.
Okay.
Right? And this is a very valid point. We didn't cover relationships yet. We are just starting with the database, right? So this is a very valid point. We'll have to change this in the future classes where, the username will stay, the user information will stay in the users table, and we'll be using a foreign key in the tweets table, and then the problem will be solved. Now we have a duplication of data. From the data, I talked about it before as well, something called data normalization. Data normalization is about eliminating duplicates. Duplicate data is bad. Not always, now that we are living in the world of data, not always duplicate data is bad, but from the normalization perspective, it's better to not have duplicates so that, if you don't have to update multiple places whenever the data changes. In this case, you can see that the user table, if you have a user name, for example, Raptor in user table, and the user Raptor, tweets something, the name will be duplicated in both tables, in tweets as well and the username as well. Now, what if the user decides to change the username? Then we'll have to go to both table and update all the fields and change the user's name from the old one to the new one, which is pretty bad. So in order to fix it, yes, we need to have user information in users table, and then we'll be having a foreign key into the tweets table and remove the username completely. And username will not be text. Instead, username will be an ID, foreign key ID.
Thank you. That was really a good example.
Yeah, that'd be something that's coming. Thanks for raising this. All right, so I think our table is ready and our data functions are ready. I'll just stop this and run it again to see that if it throws any exception. Looks like it didn't. Okay, looks like it didn't. So it's all good. So I think our table got created. And why not we maybe try out try inserting the data into the tweets table, users table, and see if everything is functioning correctly. Okay, so let's stop this. Let's go to the main, and we have the username and password. We could import the DB functionality, DB functions directly in here, and then try to insert the data. Yeah, so what we have to do is that import the DB functionality. So it's gonna be from DB import create user, right? From DB, because the DB is a module, a file, a Python file, which is another name of a module, right? So it's the Python module from DB import create user. Good enough. And then is that the right name? Create user? Yeah, create user. Great. And then at the bottom, once we have the username and password, we can just say create user and pass the username and password. So it's going to be line number 89. So Trader asks that aren't we shorting the controller in this way? Should view pass through the controller? Sorry, I didn't completely understand the question. If you can rephrase it, please, Trader.
Yeah, sure. So I was wondering if at this point the controller should mediate the passing of the username and password between the view and the like the data layer.
Yeah, so if you're asking that, so now this is the controller. The main.py is playing the controller's role here, and we have the username and password here. Then we're supposed to pass this username and password information to the model from this view, from this controller, right? So create user, line number 90 is exactly doing it. Create user, username, comma, password is calling the model function. I still am not sure if I got the question completely. But if the question is that whether the model should be responsible for passing the value to the model, yes. If the controller should be responsible for passing the value to the model, absolutely yes. And line number 90 is doing it. And line number 90, we create user does not return a user. It just creates the user. So yeah, there you go. So, all right. I think what we are trying to check here is that whether the create user is working and whether we are storing the data in the DB. So after we create the user, why not we do this? We also get the user by username and make sure that the data exists in the database. So we need to, yeah.
Sorry, I also have a kind of related question because I'm a little bit fuzzy and confused now. Because if you think about it, I was thinking that instead of calling directly from the db.py, is there a way we can wrap this whole db thing into the Twitter's.py? Because I can see when the logic happens on the controller, it's calling pretty much invoke all the functions from the Twitter's.py. Then
that's
maybe
correct.
we should have another something like a register.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a very valid concern. I was just testing it, and we are going to create a users.py. Because tweets.py is only for handling the tweets. We'll have a users.py to handle all users related information. So, but before we go there, there is a principle that I personally believe that every time I introduce something new, we need to make sure we test it, right? We introduce the DB functionality. Before we go further and create more functions, we need to test these two functions to make sure these are working. Otherwise, when we have so many functions, maybe 5 functions, 10 functions created, and we're going to integrate everything, and then something goes wrong, it's very difficult to say what is not working, because there's so many things to test now. So we need to test as we make progress. We have so far created 2 functions in the db.py. One is a create user, the other one is a get user by username, but we haven't really tested it. We are pretty sure that they will work because it's very simple, but still testing is very important part of it. So we're just testing it here.
I see. So basically, to follow your logic there, we start with a basic bare minimum from the DB, and we test it out from the controller, calling the DB function directly to make sure the work is working, the code is working. Then we move that logic to the model.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Thanks.
So we got the create user. So create user should do its job, and then after create user, can we do get user by username to make sure the user is actually inside the database? So we need to import. In line number 3, we need to import the user. Get user by username. Okay. Great. And at the end, line number 91, we can just call that function get user by username, and then pass the user. But this function will return something, right? So this needs to be stored because that's the function to get the user. So to return the user, it takes a parameter, which is the username. The parameter will be username. Yeah, so we're passing the user, but we'll get the whole user object. Then can we render the user? Line number 92. So instead of printing the username and password, just let's print the user. So we know what got returned from the database. So great. So let's save that. Let's run it. This open new. Great. So now register, and the username will be again Hassan. Password is full. Sign up. Don't save. We expected an error, but we want to see what is we're more interested in. There you go. You see this on the right side? I'm highlighting. Record 1, Hassan, and foo is the password. It's a plain text password because we didn't hash it, right? It's a plain text password. We didn't hash it. So that's why it's showing up. But at least what is important is the message that we need to take away from here is that data is getting inserted correctly without a problem. Okay, I'm going to test one more time, but a different thing will happen now. Now the same username with password maybe bar. Okay, if I try this, I will have another error, but this time the error will be different, right? This time I would expect the error to throw an unique constraint fail. There you go, right? There you go. Unique constraint fail. The username already exists. You see that? Which means our DB is forcing unique username constraint. Okay, so wonderful. Everything is working fine. All right, now that we have tested our DB unit, whether unique constraint is working or not, and the insertion is working as well, I would recommend creating something called, maybe you can just duplicate the tweets.py and create something called users.py, where we'll be managing all sort of users functionality.
Can you remind me, this is the controller or model?
Okay, now tweets.py is also a model.
Model, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we create tweets.users.py and user.py. Where is it? Sorry. See, it's coming here. Let me close this. User.py. Now, user.py, yeah, we can have get all users, and that would be, yeah, get all users. It's super easy. And then we need to add user. Create user. Yeah, that's fine. And then the first parameter will be the username, and the second parameter should be the password. Okay, it should call db.createUser, create user. First parameter the username, second parameter the password. We have work pending here. It's not fully done because we are directly inserting the data into DB, which is not correct. We need to encrypt it, but let's get to that. Then we'll be get user by username, which is basically another proxy function that we'll just call db.getUser by username. There you go. Great. But let's implement what we have learned today, right? This is the place where our learning will be used. which is basically this. I'll be copy pasting this code for you. Okay. So we don't have to. There you go. So we imported the library from tools.security, import generate password hash and check password hash, right? And now, before when we create the user, the password needs to be hashed. Who can help with that? So I would create a variable, something called hashed password. Yeah. And hash password will be basically nothing but you should call generate password hash. Password hash. And the first parameter is the password that I want to hash. And the second parameter is a named parameter, which is anyone? What's the second parameter?
Something.
Yeah, but that's not the second parameter. That's the value of it. What is the, let me go back. If you see this here, the method, okay, the method that we are using for hashing, this is the second parameter. Not the second parameter, it's a named parameter. So method equals whatever method you want to use. In that case, we are using SHA-256. So method is the named parameter. There you go. So now it's going to create a hashed password, which is exactly what we're looking for, right? Can someone say there's a function missing here, right? There's a function missing here. Can someone implement a function called password matched? A new function for password matched. Okay, password match, password matches is also, or maybe I would say it returns true or false. So I would probably make it, yeah, password match is fine. That's not bad. So the first parameter that it should take. Wow, excellent. Someone is using Python 3's what do you call, return value highlighter, which is pretty good. Thank you. The password match, the first parameter will be username. Sorry, password. And the second parameter will be, sorry, this function will be, my bad. Let's fix the function signature. The password match, the first parameter will be the username, second parameter will be the password. Trader has a question for later. Okay, what can be a quick way to put boilerplate medium setup to do automated testing PyTest instead of checking the output? Yes, that's type hinting, you're right. So I would say to automatically test, automated testing, PyTest is excellent, but writing unit test, there is no alternative to that. Your code is as good as your test. That's what everyone says. If we don't have tests, then technically we didn't write any code. So if you ask me how I do it, so if you have written the code already, and if you didn't perform test-driven development, like here, we are not writing our test first and then writing our code. We are just writing our code directly, and it's definitely lacking test. If you ask me how to quickly fix that, I would use PyTest for sure, but then I will go to, I'll take my new friend's help, which is ChatGPT. I'll take ChatGPT's help and say that write the unit test for me. I'm not going to blindly trust on his unit test. I'll review the unit test and then only implement it. Another good friend of mine is a GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot, you can use it for free. I think for personal use is free maybe at this point. It also helps you write unit tests for whatever testing framework you're using. If it is PyTest, it will generate PyTest for you automatically. But another thing I wanted to highlight is that What we tested here is not something that a unit test can cover. We tested an end-to-end flow. We actually wrote data into the database. Then we got the data back from the database. This is not covered by unit testing. This is an end-to-end testing. We need a real database to interact with. In that case, also PyTest can help. Any kind of integration test tool can also help. Hope that answers the question. So we have here password match, get user by username. Excellent. Wow, that's a very very good syntax. Line number 6, unpacking, very well done. Thank you. ID user password, and then return check hash password whether password matches the password. Wow, this is very well written. Honestly, it's a very advanced code, very well written. I really love that. It's very concise. It's not using any extra lines of code, but it's still it's communicating very, very nicely with the developers. Very well written. Who is writing it, by the way? I just don't see the name here, so.
Start with A.
Trader? Wow, really, like your way of coding is pretty good. All right, so that should fly. So how about we test this code? Okay, that is one way to test this code. Since we are talking about testing a little here, to try it out from the console, right? Let's do that. How about that? So we'll just type Python. You get, I'm typing on the right side, right bottom corner. Okay, Python, I'm in the Python shell. Then what I will do is that I'll say from, maybe just do import users. Okay, so now I have users imported. Then I can say that users dot password match, and the first, we don't have a user, so we can't really test it. We don't have a valid user yet because we haven't really, added a hashed password user. So let's do that. So let's stop it and rerun it. And I'll open the browser and let's go to /register. Maybe this time the username will be Raptor and the password will be food. Okay, sign up. Okay, we have an internal server error, that's fine, but I would expect that to be in. Okay, what is the error here? An exception register post. What? Did not return a valid response. Okay, but that is okay. Did we? I don't know why I didn't see the user information. Why didn't it get printed? Because I expected that to print the user. Let me try to add the user. I'm not sure if the user got added successfully. Then try to add the same user. It should throw an exception. Then we know that. No, I don't think it's working though. Let me stop it.
Isn't there like a tuple 2 Raptor full? I see it on the line 200.
Line 200.
Sorry, where your mouse is. Oh, you just moved.
Okay.
Down.
Raptor full, no, because okay. Now we are printing. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, so okay, my bad. So what is happening is here that we are not calling the function yet. So we need to refactor this code to insert using the model function that we just created. So that's missing. So that was fooling me. Sorry. So let's fix that. So now we have to import, instead of from db import create user and get user by username, we should do from users import create user, right? Yeah, so let's change that. Line number 3. Great. I am not sure if we need the get user by username, but we need password match function at least. hope that's the right name. Password match, yes. Password match, great. And then at the bottom, we do create user, which is this time is the coming from the user. And then maybe we also do get user by username here as well. So I'll just add that. Get user by username. I added that for you. And then get user by username just to see if the password, hashed password shows up here. Okay. So I'll rerun it. Now let me stop and rerun. And then open a new username will be Raptor. No, let's do something else. What? Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean, and the username is food. Okay. Sign up. I go back. There you go. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Line number 3 got inserted. Name is Mr. Bean, and you see the password here. That's the hash password that we wanted to see. Working, great. So now that should take care of, registration of the user. Creating the user into the DB. What is missing here is that showing a thank you message or showing a success message. Okay, so how about we just show a success message here, return a response. So we create user and then return the response. Yes, we can redirect user to the login page. That also works, but maybe show a success message the user got created and then redirect the user to the success message, login URL.
Couldn't that be as well like a parameter to the template? And we set that as part of the rendering back.
Yeah, so we can create another template, or we can just return one liner here, like line number 63. Line number 63, like successfully received the tweet, something like this. We can just return successfully created the user and then give it a link to the login page. So we can just return successfully created the user from here and give a link to the login page. In an ideal world, I mean, whatever we are doing here is not really a very good experience, because after sign up is complete, you want to actually go to the login page with the message set that account created successfully, please log in. But we don't have it here. But in future, when we refactor our front end code and introduce Bootstrap, I think we can refactor our UI experience as well. We can add a link here, like anchor. We can just add inside of it, because it's just one liner, so I think it doesn't hurt. So what I'm saying is that successfully registered, maybe make it an if string, successfully registered username, and then we can say that next line br, and then we can have an anchor href to /login, right?
Sorry, just want to confirm. I think I asked this before.
Yeah.
Okay. App.route return everything in HTML. Like a route returning like a pure HTML as return instead of printing in console.
Instead of putting the sorry, I didn't fully get it. So you're saying that instead of
the question was all this route dot / whatever, app.route, all this, they're returning the expecting returning HTML, right?
Yes. Yes, every route expects a valid response. Let's put it this way. It's maybe HTML, maybe not. but expecting a valid response. So a valid response can be a text, can be an HTML, can be a redirect. These are all valid return type. And in this case, we are just returning a text with some anchor link inside of it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So I think we need to restart, create another user register. Then Mr. A with full username, full password, and there you go. I don't want to save. No. Successfully registered Mr. A, and let's go to the login page. Okay. Now the login page, I think we linked the login page wrong. The login page is actually the home page / It's actually the home page. So it's going to be /. Okay. So let's stop, rerun it. And then it's going to be /register. Oh, sorry, my bad. Register, Mr. B and foo. And then if I sign up, it's signed up, and then let's go login. There you go. Now it's asked for username and password. Now it's asked for username. Yeah, sorry, username, but it's not asking for password. So let's fix that real quick. Okay, we only have 10 minutes left, but I believe that we can still do it. So what we need to do is that we need to create, I would probably just duplicate the register.html. Okay, I'll just, duplicate the register.html and copy and make it a login.html, because our login now has more fields. So I'll just go ahead and change it. And here, the login, let me see if they use in the main, the login is handled by /login. So I'll just change it to /login post. Instead of sign up, this time the template will be login. Yeah, maybe just get rid of that. Login, username and password, and then the value will be login as well. Okay, so now this is just a new template where now it's asking for username and password for the user to log in. And this, when done, when user submits it, it goes to /login. Now in the main, when we go to the home page here, if the current user is there, it redirects the user to the tweet page, or it renders template, form.html. But actually, this time we don't want to render form.html. We want to render login.html. The login.html doesn't take any parameter at this point. I'll just get rid of that. So that's it. If the user is logged in, go to the tweets page, or just render the template, login template. Okay, so I'm just helping just because we have only 8 minutes left, just to speed things up. So this should already give us the new login page. Let's take a look. I'll refresh. There you go. Now the home page is asking for username and password, and there's a login button. So this is our new template. Now, in the post section, thank you for adding the code already. We have we will not have the current user. The line number 33 is not going to be current user. It's going to be username. Now, because we don't know the current user yet, right? And the password will be just password. Line number 34, let's change that. Change the password to password. Yeah, just to keep the uniformity. So yeah, we got the username and password. Now there's a magic function that we created, something called what? Password match, right? Password match. Now, password match takes the first parameter is the username, and the second parameter is the password. Great. Password match returns Boolean, right? So it can be either true or false. So let's store the result in a variable. Excellent. Authenticated. That's the right variable name. Excellent. So password match. Then if, yeah, there you go. If the user is authenticated, then current user is username. Current underscore user is the username. So user is authenticated. So by just setting the global variable, we are authenticating the user. This is not the right way to log in the user. We will be handling the right way of session handling in the next class. Okay. This is only a temporary solution, by the way. This global variable current user is just a temporary solution. For now, it works, but it's not a very good solution. We'll be learning about the Flask session management in the next class, when there will be refactoring the rest of the code. Now, if the user is authenticated, current user is username. Otherwise, yeah, invalid username or password. Excellent. And after line number 37, if the username, once the username is set, we should also redirect the user to tweets. So line number 40 goes inside the if condition. Because if the user, after user is logged in successfully, we should just redirect the user. Yeah, it should return from there. Redirect must be returned.
Do we redirect after if a user is like failed to log in, or just
yeah, we could do that as well. We could do that as well. But if we redirect it, then the message will be lost. So we don't have a flash message set at this point. So we can just add a link for now, then log in again. Try again maybe. It's going to be anchor ahref. So it's going to be an anchor. So I can help, no problem. So invalid. So let's add a BR here, and then we want an anchor href and send the user back to / and anchor end, and then say that try again, right? I don't know why it's complaining. It says that if string mismatch placeholder. Where is the placeholder? If we don't need an if string though, we can just get rid of the if string because there is no if string. There is no placeholder at this point. We don't need that. 1, 2 gaps up there. I think that should fly already. Let's give it a shot. Stop, rerun it, and then refresh this page. Let's try to log in as Asan and then foo. This user does not exist. I mean, the password shouldn't match because, it says internal server error. Okay, we have a problem. It says what? Login failed, invalid username and password, unsupported operand str where unsupported. So we have line number 40. Oh, sorry. Is that the reason? I don't know. That shouldn't be a problem. I don't think that should be a problem. So, okay. Yeah, I have, we mixed up the double quotes and single quotes. Now I should fly. Okay, so let's stop that, rerun that. And then let's go back, sun and foo. We expect this to say, hey, there you go. Login failed, invalid username and password, try again. So it goes back to this is not a very good experience, honestly. It's not a very good experience, but we are testing our model functionality here. We'll fix the user experience and UI in the future classes. So, but for Mr. A, the username, the password is foo, and I know it's hashed. Let's see if it works. Excellent. See, when I use Mr. A and I provided the right password, you can see I'm logged in already and asking for a tweet. So I can say that hello from Mr. A. Quits, There you go. Hello from Mr. A. Mr. A. There you go. Hello from Mr. A by Mr. A. Okay. So I think that's all from today. I think we did a pretty good job. There's a lot of model functions, a lot of some database, and some UI tweak as well. How do you think the class was? Do you think we learned something today?
Oh yeah.
Great. And the next session is going to be even more interesting because now we are using a global variable, which is a pretty stupid thing to do, honestly. I mean, it works for, just for the sake of simplicity, but it's definitely not a solution. We are using a global variable to kind of track the current user. Pretty bad. So this is what we are going to do in the next class. Okay. We did password hashing, we did registration and so on. But we didn't really authenticate the user correctly, right? So the next class, we'll be authenticating the user using Flask session. That's the right way of doing it, okay? We'll be using Flask session to authenticate the user. We'll be beautifying our user interface a little using Bootstrap, a framework, pretty famous framework. It's been there in the market for a pretty long time. So we'll be doing both in the next class. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining. Please do let me know in the comments or in the meetup comments as well, like how I can improve it. If there's anything that you want to see in the next classes. And I'll be uploading this video on YouTube channel once it's ready. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.